Good afternoon. Let's start our discussion about Module 5, that is about applications of linear ICs. We saw few applications of linear ICs like the comparators, Smith trigger, and the basic op-amp amplifiers like inverting, non-inverting, and we saw a summer, subtractor, and all these circuits in the previous module. Here we are going to continue with some more applications of the op-amp, and along with that we will also discuss about specific IC, that is the 555 timer IC. We'll also talk about that timer IC and its applications in this module. Just a second. Okay, so let's continue. What is the syllabus prescribed by VTU in module 5? As I was telling you, we are going to study about digital to analog converters or DAC circuits in short. And in that, we are going to study two major types of DAC, that is the weighted resistor digital to analog converter and R2R DAC. So we are going to talk about two different types of digital to analog converters. We are also going to study about analog to digital converters, and in analog to digital converters we are going to discuss about the successive approximation ADC, which is one of the most commonly used analog to digital converter. We are going to talk about that successive approximation ADC. And once we speak about why do you think we need DAC and ADC in our day-to-day life? Remember, all signals which exist in nature are basically analog. So since all signals are analog in nature, or let's say almost all signals are analog in nature, we always need to what? Convert from analog to digital if you want to process it using a digital processor like a computer. Remember, your computer works with binary numbers. It's digital. So, and we know that converting to digital will give us lot of advantages in terms of memory, speed of processing and all that. So, converting from analog to digital becomes very important if we have to process efficiently and very quickly, and we can do that when we make use of what are ADCs and DACs. So every signal that exists, say for example the output of a temperature sensor like thermistor. Yesterday we were talking about the instrumentation amplifier, and I was giving you the example of a power plant where we make use of a temperature sensitive device like a thermistor at the plant. Say it's at a boiler in the plant or something, and there you're going to measure the temperature, and then you have to amplify it to a little extent and then carry the signal over a long distance to a process control room. That process control normally happens in digital using computers. So converting this analog voltage or current, which is measured and sensed and converted to electrical voltage. So converting such an electrical voltage or current which is continuous or analog in nature to something which is discrete or digital is essential if we have to carry out efficient processing and if we should be able to store these values. So storage devices are also easily available in digital domain. So whenever we want to do efficient processing and storage, we always try to shift to digital domain and work there. And if we have to do that, all signals which we have measured in nature, physical signals, are basically analog. We have to digitize them first by using analog to digital converter, and once we finish processing in the digital domain, remember, whoever is the sender or human being, whoever is using that information, will understand that information efficiently only when it is back in analog. I can't understand if I see a series of binary numbers and I'll say this is the output. Nobody would understand what it is. You had transmitted a temperature, you should get back a result as a temperature, a measure of that temperature or something like that. Say you had transmitted a voice, you should get back to hear that voice after processing. Okay, image, something like that. You should get back the analog signal once you finish processing, and you can use that signal for any purpose, either to control some device or simply use it. So I need digital to analog converters or DACs. So analog to digital and digital to analog converters are very essential in our day-to-day life today, because almost all signals which exist in nature are analog, whereas the processing is better, more efficient, and well defined in the digital domain. We have advanced very much in digital processing. So we want to do the processing efficiently in digital domain. So you use an ADC to convert from analog to digital, process it in the digital domain. And once the processing is done, I have to convert it back to analog so that it will be in a proper usable form for the human user. So whoever is trying to use that data should get it back in the same form in which they had sent. So we have to use a digital to analog converter at the end of processing to get back the analog signal. Okay, and that's where our DAC and ADCs come into picture. And next we'll be talking about small signal half wave precision rectifier. Here they have mentioned only half wave rectifier, but it is actually a half wave precision rectifier. What's the meaning of precision? What idea do you get when you say the word precision? Precision is something about accuracy, right? When I say it is a high precision device, you automatically think the accuracy of the device is high. So we are talking of a device, a rectifier, which can rectify signals less than 0.7 volts. Remember, when we use the normal diode half wave and full wave rectifiers, which you have done in your basic electronics, there was always that 0.7 volts limit. The diodes, whatever diodes you had here, this diode had a cut-in voltage of 0.7 volts if it is a silicon diode. And any input signal which was given here, only when that input signal crossed 0.7 volts, I would get the output. So you will always see the peak value of the rectified output was peak value of input minus 0.7. Yes or no? The amplitude of the final rectified output will always be 0.7 less than the input, and this diode can be switched on only when the input signal voltage crosses 0.7 volts. But many of the signals, the signal sensed in a thermistor or the signal sensed in some other device, say a pressure sensor or something, they may be very small. They won't exceed or they won't even reach 0.7 volts. They'll be in millivolts or so. And if I want to rectify those signals, what should I do? That is where we make use of a precision rectifier. So here we are going to study about a half wave precision rectifier. We can also have full wave. You're actually doing it in the lab, both half wave and full wave. But here in theory, we'll understand the working of a half wave precision rectifier. I'll also explain the full wave rectifier as we do it. Okay, so I hope you understood the purpose of a precision rectifier. It is to rectify or to convert full sine wave to half sine waves, or to rectify input AC signals whose amplitude is less than 0.7 volts. Okay, it should rectify AC signals with amplitude less than 0.7 volts. Those circuits are precision rectifiers. Again, half wave and full wave are available. The next part of the syllabus is, the next application is active filters. Again, you are doing it in the lab. Remember, active filters which we are talking of here are those frequency selective circuits which select a part of the input frequency and reject all the rest. So you have circuits to select just one part of the input signal and reject the other frequencies in the input signal. Say I have a low pass filter, it should select only the low frequencies, or it should pass on the input signal at low frequencies as it is or with some gain, and it should reject all the high frequency components. So low pass, high pass, band pass and band reject. We have 4 types of filters. If you remember, we had discussed these characteristics in module 2 when we spoke of what? The single time constant high pass and low pass frequency response. When we spoke about frequency response of MOSFET amplifiers, I had given you the introduction to low pass, high pass, band pass, which will pass a band of frequencies, and band reject filters. These are ideal filter characteristics which I have drawn. Okay, this is normally gain versus frequency. We'll be talking in detail about the design and analysis of these filters, active filters. Okay, and the next part is, once we complete these applications of the 741 op-amp, we'll move on to a very versatile and very useful IC, which is the 555 timer. So we'll be talking about this 555 timer, its internal construction. Actually, internally, it will also use op-amps only. It will make use of 2 op-amps internally, along with a flip-flop and 2 transistors. That's why this 555 timer will also be considered under op-amp applications, but because of its versatility and usage, it found such a large response and so much of usage that people brought it out as a separate IC. So rather than using this 741, a pair of that and flip-flop and transistors and all, they thought if we can make an IC out of all this combination, we could call it as a timer IC. And that timer IC is a very, very useful device to generate constant timing delays in any circuit. So whenever we have to generate some fixed timing delays, we make use of this 555 timer IC. Okay, so that's we'll be talking about the few applications or a few important circuits which are designed using this 555 timer. They are easily be able to work like monostable and astable multi-vibrators. We'll talk about that as we go to that part. So basically what you have to understand here is we are working with few major applications of op-amps, like data converters we call. ADCs and DACs are also known as data converters. Then we'll talk about the precision rectifier and then 4 types of active filters. And finally, we'll be discussing about the 555 timer and its applications. And the textbook which you have to refer for this portion of the syllabus is text 2. As you can see, it is mentioned, the different units which you have to refer in text 2 is also mentioned here. You have to refer op-amps and linear integrated circuits by Ramakant Gaikwad, 4th edition. Other than this, op-amps and linear ICs by Roy Chowdhury is also a very good textbook. You can refer to this book also. compared to Gaikwad, for 555 timers especially, Roy Chowdhury is a better book. Okay, so the same title, Op-Amps and its Applications by Roy Chowdhury is also a good book. If you have access to it or in the library, you can take it. Now, let's discuss what are the objectives in module 5. At the end of this module, not this class, at the end of this module, you will be able to analyze and design linear IC based applications like DACs, ADCs, both put together. We call them as data converters. These are known as data converters. Okay, and then we also study about 4 types of active filters: low pass, high pass, band pass filter and band reject filter. So we'll be talking about 4 types of active filters. You'll also be able to analyze and design precision rectifiers. Ideally, we have only half-wave rectifiers in our syllabus. And next part, we'll also be studying about the working of the 555 timer IC, and we will design astable and monostable multivibrators using that IC. So these are the objectives. The course outcomes of today's class are, at the end of this class, you'll be able to analyze the DAC and define its parameters. You will also be able to analyze and design the weighted resistor DAC, and if time permits, we'll continue with the R2R ladder DAC. So as I told you, we'll be studying about 2 different types of digital to analog converters. The first one is the weighted resistor DAC, and the second one is R2R ladder DAC. So coming to data converters. Data converters are those circuits which help in converting data from one form to another, analog to digital or from digital to analog. So we have 2 types of data converters: analog to digital converters or ADCs, where we are going to convert analog data into digital data. And when I say digital, usually it will be in binary form. Okay. And the other type of data converters are digital to analog data converters, which we do it at the end of processing. After digital processing, we will convert it back to analog. We call them as DACs, or digital to analog converters. And again, the digital input data will normally be in binary, and analog can be any voltage or current waveform. Now, where do we make use of these data converters, or where do I make use of data converters? I have put a table here showing some applications of ADCs and DACs. Normally, transducers. Okay, so ADCs are used in like some kind of transducers. We will need ADCs as the initial part. We also use them in computers and microcontrollers. We also use them in digital storage as oscilloscopes or DSOs, and we also use it to reproduce music. So usually in many music players, they convert our voice, the music which is coming analog signal into digital, and they will transmit it over long distance, say your telephone, radio, anywhere. Your voice is converted from analog to digital. Then some processing is done like amplification, modulation, so on, and it will be transmitted over a long distance. And after that, at the receiver, you're going to receive the signal, and the receiver will receive part of the signal, and it can also generate or reproduce converting from digital to analog. It will give us back the voice or music. So these are some of the applications of ADCs and DACs. Okay, almost one thing you remember, they are almost very essential in our day-to-day life. We use them everywhere. Whenever in any industry, you think whatever the application, your input, the physical signal, if you want to measure or process, you are going to receive that signal and convert it to digital, because processing in the digital domain is easy, and you will convert it back to analog, because later on you will have to give it in a format suitable to be understood by the user. So ADCs and DACs are a part of our day-to-day life almost everywhere. These are just some example applications. Now let's study the digital to analog converters, in short, the DACs. So what is a DAC? A DAC can be defined as an electronic integrated circuit which converts data from digital or discrete form to analog or continuous form. So please remember, you can see in this diagram below, we have data in digital form or binary form, 101, 01, 000, 110. So I have digital data which is represented as a binary number. When I connect this digital data as input to this DAC, and I also connect a DC reference source VREF, then I will be getting an analog output like this. You see, the output what you get will not be a perfect sine wave as such. It will be something which looks like a staircase approximation of the actual analog signal. If the actual analog signal was a sine wave, your output will look something like this. It will look like a staircase which will give me an approximation of the sine wave. And if I want to receive the sine wave only, I don't want the staircase, I can pass it through a low pass filter and it will be converted to a sine wave. As simple as that. Okay. So how do you define a DAC? It's an electronic integrated circuit which converts data from digital or discrete form into analog or continuous form. So I have already shown you this diagram where digital data in the form of binary numbers, okay, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, whatever, all are given as input to a DAC with the reference voltage Vref connected, and the output is an analog signal, as you can see. As I told you, it won't be a perfect analog, but it will be something similar to a staircase approximation of the required analog signal, which can be obtained when I use a filter. If I use a low pass filter at the output, I'll get back the analog signal. So computational systems are usually digital in nature, and all the information which has to be processed in nature is analog. Hence the need for DAC and ADC. So why do we need DAC and ADC? We have already discussed. All processing and computational systems are digital. They need digital inputs, whereas almost all the signals which are measured and which are existing in nature are analog. So need to convert from analog to digital, process in the digital domain efficiently, and put it back to the analog domain for the user to understand what has happened to the signal. Okay, we have some important parameters for a DAC. Let's say parameters. One important parameter is something known as the resolution of a DAC. What do you mean by resolution of a DAC? It is nothing but the number of bits which can be converted in a DAC. Remember, a DAC is a digital to analog converter. How many bit inputs the DAC can take is a measure of resolution. We can also talk of resolution in that terms, but very often we define this resolution as the DC reference voltage which is given Vref divided by 2 to the power of n, where n represents the number of bits. How many input bits which we have given to the DAC, that is n, and if I divide Vref by that, so it is a measure of the smallest voltage, okay, the smallest voltage output from DAC. We also call it as the step size of the output voltage V0. So there are many different names for this DAC. When I talk about resolution of the DAC, it is the other meaning for that is the step size of the DAC. Why am I talking of step size? Remember, though the actual output should be like this, what you see at the output of the DAC will be something similar to a staircase, right? You will actually be because it has converted individual digital values to analog values. So you would be seeing something like a staircase at the output, and each step length here, the height of one step is defined as step size, and that is known as resolution of the DAC. Is that clear? So resolution or step size are one and the same, and how it can be measured? It is normally measured as the given DC reference voltage divided by 2 to the power of n, where n represents the number of input bits given to the DAC for conversion. Say, for example, we have a 3-bit DAC and the reference voltage given is 5 volts. Then what would be the resolution? The resolution would be 5 volts divided by 2 to the power of 3, which will be 5 by 8. So whatever value you get here, I think you will get around how much? 0.7 something. So you will get the smallest step size or the least analog output voltage from the DAC as 0.7 volts, which represents the resolution of the DAC. Is that clear? You have to find these parameters in the lab also. So please take care to understand these parameters correctly. So resolution of the DAC is one important parameter. The second important parameter is linearity of the DAC. So what do you mean by linearity? Whenever I plot, say, whenever I have a plot of analog output versus digital input, okay, you are using digital input. Here your values are 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, then 0, 0, 1, 0. So it represents binary 0, binary 1, so on. So as I represent the analog output voltage corresponding to a digital input, I'll be seeing a staircase like waveform like this. So as I increase the value of the analog input, I'll see the digital input, I'll see the analog output voltage going on increasing in the fashion of a staircase. And the resolution will represent the first step size. The size of the smallest step is resolution. Whereas linearity is a measure. Say I join all these points using a straight line. Okay. I join all these points using a straight line. And the slope of this straight line, which we have joined all the analog points, instead of joining them using a staircase waveform, if all the corresponding analog points were joined, analog voltage points here, if all these points were joined using a straight line, okay, I would get a straight line like this. And if I measure the slope of this straight line, that represents linearity. So slope of the straight line joining all analog points, in a graph, is called the linearity. And usually this linearity and resolution will be quite nearing each other. They'll almost be equal to each other, right? Because the height of one step or the slope of the whole thing joined together should almost be the same usually. But if you don't get a good linearity, then the DAC is not efficient. So linearity should be quite good for a DAC, and resolution should be as small as possible. The smaller the resolution, the more accurate your analog output will be. Okay. So if I have very big steps, say I have a sine wave like this and I'm measuring it in such huge steps, then when I try to recover back the sine wave, I may get a different odd shape. I may not get back the sine wave shape correctly. Whereas if I have many small steps, if I'm going to use very, very small steps, it's very easy for me to recover and get back the original shape of the analog signal properly. So please remember, two important parameters of a DAC are its resolution and linearity. Okay, you are going to measure these two parameters in the lab also. Now, coming to the first type of DAC which we were trying to discuss, that is the binary weighted resistor DAC. So what is this binary weighted resistor DAC? The binary weighted resistor DAC, we design it using an inverting summing circuit or an inverting adder. As you can see here, an inverting op-amp is used, and to the inverting terminal we have connected multiple resistors. I have shown for 3 different resistors and 3 different voltage input connections. Okay, a simple inverting summing circuit this is, where 3 input voltages V1, V2, V3 are given through 3 different resistors, and there is a feedback resistor. So what would be the output voltage of this summer? Anybody? The output voltage of this summer is, it's a simple scaling summing amplifier, RF by minus, since I'm giving the inputs to the inverting terminal, it will be minus RF by R1 into V1, minus RF by R2 into V2, and minus RF by R3 into V3. This is the output of our inverting summing circuit, right? We have already derived this in the previous module. Now, if I want to convert this inverting summer to a digital to analog converter, some few simple changes which we are going to make. First thing is, instead of having 3 different input voltages, I am going to connect each of these resistor ends to one of the 2 lines through switches. I'll either be connecting to a DC reference voltage Vref, or I'll connect it to ground. That's how I can give a digital input. Remember, I'm supposed to give a digital input here. The input signal should be either logic 1 or logic 0. Okay. Since you are supposed to give a digital input here, you have to connect either to a Vref voltage of plus 5 volts, which represents logic 1 or binary 1. So this will represent binary 1, and ground will represent binary 0. So whenever I want to give a binary input as 1 or 0, I'll either be connecting it to plus 5 reference voltage, or I'll connect it to ground. So you see how the connection is done at the ends of the resistors. Normally, we can use switches also here, which will allow us to either connect to Vref or ground. It will give an option, a single pole dual throw switch. We call them as SPDT switches, where you have the switch like this. You can either connect it to plus 5 volts Vref, or you can connect this switch to 0. So it is a single pole but dual throw switch. We call it as SPDT. So normally we try to use switches like that. That's one major change. Instead of giving 3 input voltages to the inverting summer, we are supposed to give either logic 5 or 0. plus 5 volts or 0 we are supposed to give. So we connect it to those two lines, as you can see, through switches. And these are the switches, single pole, dual throw. It can either be connected to this line, which will be connected to ground, or it can be connected here. If I connect it here, it will be connected to VCC or VREF. The second change is in the value of the resistors. I have to design a weighted resistor DAC. So the value of the resistors will be, say the first resistor, if I use the value as R, the next resistor will be R by 2. The third resistor will be R by 4. The fourth resistor can be R by 8, so on. So what am I trying to do? I am trying to change the resistance values by dividing the resistor with the powers of 2. That's why it is a binary weighted resistor DAC. Is that clear? So here I am using R by 2 power 1. Here I am using R by 2 square. If I use the next one, I'll use R by 2 cubed or R by 8, so on. RF remains as before. The non-inverting terminal can be grounded, or since you know we have already discussed about having equal resistors, Thevenin's equivalent resistance from inverting terminal to ground should be equal to the Thevenin's resistance from non-inverting terminal to ground. So you can include a resistance here, which will be the parallel combination of R, R by 2 and R by 4 in this case. Remember, whenever I am finding Thevenin's equivalent resistance, I have to ground the voltage sources, and I will also have this in parallel with RF. So all these four resistors will appear in parallel between inverting terminal to ground. So you can connect an equivalent resistance which is equal to the parallel combination of these from non-inverting terminal to ground. That is to avoid errors, minute errors due to bias currents and offset voltages. Remember, errors at the output due to bias currents and offset voltages in op-amps can be avoided by equating the Thevenin's resistance from inverting terminal to ground to the Thevenin's resistance seen from non-inverting terminal to ground. All this we have discussed, so I'm just telling you this can be connected like this. Hope you understood the connection of the binary weighted resistor DAC and why it is called so, because these resistors which are connected to the inverting input are weighted by powers of 2. So I'll divide the second resistor by 2 power 1, the third resistor by 2 square, the fourth resistor by 2 cube, so on. So let us see. As I was telling you, it's the same circuit but shown with 4 resistors here. So this is a D to A converter. I'll say this is a 4-bit D to A converter with binary weighted resistors. Can you see the resistors? The first resistor is R of value 10K. The second resistor is R by 2, so its value will be 10 by 2, 5K. The third resistor is R by 4, 2.5K. The fourth one is R by 8, R by 2 cubed. It will turn out to be 1.5. And as you can see here, I told you I can use single pole dual throw switches. Okay. You can use single pole double throw or dual throw switches here at the end of these 4 resistors. You see we are using switches with 2 connections. One connection will take it to plus 5 volts or the VREF voltage, and the other connection will take it to ground or 0 volts. Okay. And as usual, these 4 resistors are connected to the inverting input terminal of the op-amp. The non-inverting terminal can be grounded, or it can use a compensation resistor, RComp, which will compensate for error or offset voltages. R in parallel with R by 2, in parallel with R by 4, in parallel with R by 8, in parallel with RF. So all these 5 resistors which are connected to the inverting terminal will appear to be in parallel when we consider. So the Thevenin's resistance. So the same value of resistance can be connected here. And the feedback resistance of 1K is connected here and the output voltage is measured. You can use any op-amp, 741351, whatever. The power supply is given to the op-amp are plus 15 and minus 15. And it is connected as an inverting summing amplifier. So the op-amp is connected as an inverting summing amplifier circuit. Okay. As I told you, 4 switches are used to simulate the binary inputs as ones or zeros. Let us try to analyze this circuit and let's try to find the expression for output voltage. Just before that, let's see how to plot a graph of digital input versus analog output. So this is digital input. For a 4-bit DAC, I have how many combinations? I will have 2 to the power of 4 or 16 combinations of digital signals. So I'll represent those 16 combinations along the x-axis. So the digital input, this corresponds to 0, 0, 0, 0. This corresponds to what? 0, 0, 0, 1. This corresponds to 0, 0, 1, 0. Like this, all the 4-bit digital input values will be given here along the x-axis. And if I number them, they will range from 0 to 15. And the corresponding analog voltage values in this circuit would be, I would have a voltage of minus 0.5 volt for one. I'll derive it and show it next, how it will be minus 0.5. So for 2, it will be minus 1. So what would be the step size in this? What is the size of the lowest step? For input value 1, the step size will be around 0.5 volts. So in this case, the step size is around 0.5 volts. The output can be seen changing in steps according to the step size. So initially output will increase by 0.5, then it will increase to 1, then 1.5. But it is happening in the negative direction for the simple reason that we have given all the inputs to the inverting terminal. So all the values which you are seeing are negative, okay, because the inputs are given to the inverting terminal. The analog output voltages which you see, the analog output will be negative because of input being given to the inverting terminal. Okay. Now, I already told you about resolution. The size of one step or the first step size is resolution. And this resolution can also be measured as Vref by 2 to the power of n for a n-bit DAC. For a n-bit DAC, we can measure the resolution as Vref by 2 to the power of n. The step size is also almost same as resolution. I told you it will be similar to resolution. The size of the one step will be almost equivalent to the resolution value. And then we also can measure something known as the full scale output voltage, FSV it is called in short. The full scale output voltage, you notice, will not be equal to the reference voltage. You may feel the final output voltage will be equal to the reference voltage, but usually that is not the case, because if you see the binary input values, the highest value of binary input here is 7. It's not 8. With a 3-bit value, the binary ranges from 0 to 7. So even if I showed you, I'll get the resolution as 5 by 8. I showed you in the previous case how resolution would be 5 by 8 for a 3-bit DAC. Yes or no? So when the resolution is 5 by 8 for a 3-bit DAC, as you can see here, this is the size of one step. The full scale voltage will be the maximum digital value into 5 by 8. So you can clearly see this value reduces to 35 by 8, which is not 5 volts. If it had to be 5 volts, it should have been 40. 40 by 8 would have given you 5. So it is one step less than the final voltage. Please remember this always. In a digital to analog converter, the full scale output voltage will always be one step less than the maximum reference voltage which has been supplied. Okay. So we can also measure this full scale voltage in a DAC. I hope all these things are clear to you. If you have any doubts, please ask. Now, coming to the example of how we can find the value of the analog output voltage, let me take a 4-bit DAC as shown in this figure. Okay, this was the 4-bit DAC which we considered. And let's assume these switches B0, B1, B2, B3. These switches are given the connection in such a way that the binary input is 0001. So here B3 represents the most significant bit value. Please remember this. And B0 represents the least significant bit value, LSB and MSB. Okay. So the most significant bit value is 0. So 0 means this connection should be made to the, you can see it is made to the ground line. Again, the next significant bit is also connected to ground, B2. The third significant bit is also connected to ground, B1, whereas B0 is connected to Vref or plus 5 volts. So only this will get the value logic 1 or plus 5 volts, and the other 3 resistors will be connected to ground or 0. Okay. So what will be the voltage which comes across R now? So we have 5 volts coming across this resistor R. Why do I say across R? Remember, you can use the principle of virtual ground. If V1 is actually connected to ground, it appears that V2 will also be at the ground potential because of the very high gain of the op-amp. We said since op-amp gain is very, very high, it tends to infinity, then the differential input voltage will tend to 0, or in other words, V1 is almost equal to V2. If one of the input terminals is at 1 voltage, that is the ground voltage 0 volts, V2 will also gain the same amount of voltage because the differential input voltage will almost be 0 whenever the high gain of the op-amp comes into picture. That's always same. It will be there in effect. So I can consider this voltage V2 is at 0 volts and this end of the resistor R is at 5 volts. So what is the effective current flowing through R? If I consider the value of current flowing through R as IR, how do I compute that IR? The value of current through R will be the voltage drop across R, which is 5 minus 0. This end is at higher potential 5 volt. This end is at lower potential 0 volts. So IR will be difference in potential across the resistor divided by the value of the resistor R. R is equal to 10K in this example. So what would be the value of current? You can see I'll have 0.5 milliamps as the current flowing through this resistor. And it is flowing in this direction. Okay, the current is flowing in this direction. Now, once the current comes here, it has two options. Either it can go into the op-amp or it can go through the feedback resistor path. What do you think will happen? Remember, what is the input resistance of an ideal op-amp? Yes. The input resistance of an ideal op-amp is infinity or very, very huge. So instead of going here, I can consider the current IB, the bias current IB which flows into the op-amp is almost 0. All the current IR which comes here will continue flowing through this resistance RF. Okay. So if I consider the current through this resistor as IRF, the value of that current IRF will become 5 milliamps, as the current IB which is going into the op-amp is ideally 0. For an ideal op-amp, input impedance is infinity, so no current can flow through that. It's like an open circuit. Okay. Even in a practical op-amp, the input impedance is huge. So a very minute current flows through that, which can be negligible as compared to this. So all the 5 milliamps can be assumed to flow in this path. Now, how do I define the output voltage of this op-amp? It's very easy. What is the voltage drop across RF? If I want to consider the voltage drop across RF, I can write VRF here. VRF is V2. The voltage at this end of RF is V2. The voltage at the other end of RF is V0. V2 minus V0 will be the voltage drop across RF. And I know the current through RF is given as what? V2 minus V0 divided by the resistance RF. The current through RF, IRF, is given as voltage drop divided by the resistance. So I know V2 is 0. I can easily find V0. What would be the value of V0 in this circuit? It will be the current IRF into the value of resistance RF with a negative sign. Remember, I am finding minus V0 because this V2 is 0. So minus V0 will be equal to I into RF, or in other words, V0 can be written as I minus I into RF. Is that clear? So the output voltage can be written as minus IRF into RF. We already know what is the value of IRF, 5 milliamps. We know what is the value of this resistance RF, 1K. So I can easily find the output voltage as current into the resistance 0.5 milli into 1K, which will give you a voltage of minus 0.5 volts. I hope it is clear to you how we are finding the output voltage for this input condition. So when I consider the input condition to be 0001, the digital input to be 0001, I'll get the analog output voltage as minus 0.5 volts as indicated in this staircase. You see, we showed minus 0.5 volts in this staircase, the same thing we are getting. Okay. Similarly, can you try for the digital input 0010? If you try for this case, what would happen? You know that this V0 would be connected to ground. So this connection would be to ground, whereas this will be connected here. B1 will be connected to Vref plus 5 volts. B2 and B3 will be connected to ground. That's how I get 0010. Wherever you have 1, there you should get Vref. You should connect Vref, which represents logic 1 or binary 1. Is that clear? So this is the type of connection for the second case. Now the resistance value here is R by 2. And what would be the value of current flowing through this resistor? So if I consider the voltage drop across this resistor, it would be Vref at this end 5 volts. The other end is connected to V2, which is 0. So the difference in voltage across this resistance is 5 minus 0, which will be 5 volts. And the value of the resistance is R by 2, which is 5K. So 5 volts by 5K, I'm going to get the value of current here in this resistor as 1 milliampere. And now this current can flow only through RF and it can't go into the op-amp because of its high resistance. So what would be the value for output voltage? We already have the expression for output voltage minus I into RF. I is 1 milliampere, RF is 1K, minus of that. So minus 1 volt would be the output. So if the value of output for binary 1 is minus 0.5 volt. The value of output for binary 2 is minus 1 volt. So you can see that the step size is increasing by minus 0.5, minus 0.5, minus 1. So here we had written the values. I am showing you how we are getting those values. Okay. So this is how we will find. You can check for a condition when both B0 and B1 are closed. So what happens in a condition? B0 is also closed, B1 is also closed. So both these are connected here. B2 and B3 are grounded. So this corresponds to a binary value of 0011, right? So wherever I have connected Vref, that corresponds to logic 1. You're getting 0011. So now I have to consider the effective resistance of these two in parallel, which will be R in parallel with R by 2. Since both are connected to plus 5 volts, I can take, and the other end of both is 0. The voltage at this end is 0, one end is at plus 5. It is like connecting two resistors across this from 5 volts to 0 volts. And one resistance is R, the other is R by 2. So when I take the parallel combination of these two, this will be 10K in parallel with 5K. So it will reduce to 3.33K. Okay. And now what would be the value of current flowing through this parallel combination? So through the resistance 3.33K, I'll have a voltage drop of 5 volts because here we give 5. This end is at V2, which is at virtual ground. Remember, this is virtual ground, 0 potential. So what happens here? The value of current is 5 divided by 3.33K, which will give you around 1.5 milliamps. So the value of current through this combination of resistors now is 1.5 milliamps. All the 1.5 milliamps will flow through this resistor and not in this direction into the op-amp. And the output voltage can be written as voltage drop across this resistor with a negative value. So V0 can be written as minus 1.5 milli into the value of the feedback resistor 1K. So I'll get minus 1.5 volts, which represents the third step in the staircase. You see the third step corresponds to what? The digital input 0011, and corresponding to that the analog voltage reached is minus 1.5. Likewise, you can go on doing for all the values, and you can see that for the highest value 1111, you can simply sum up all the currents, the current in the R resistor, the current in the R by 2 resistor, the current in R by 4 resistor. As the resistance decreases, you see the current is increasing. It's almost doubling. I had 0.5 when the resistor was R. I had 1 milli when the resistor was R by 2. If the resistor is R by 4, I will have double this 2 milli. If the resistor is R by 8, I'll have 4 milli. You can easily find that out. And if I want a condition for the digital input with all ones, you just sum up all these 4 resistors. You'll get the total current which is present, and multiply that total current with RF. You'll get the final output or the full scale output voltage for maximum value of digital input, which will turn out to be minus 7.5 volts. So you can see this is listed as a table. Let's talk about the expression very fast. The output voltage equation can likewise be written. So it's a sum of currents. How will I find the current? Minus RF, or if I consider it as an inverting summer, I know the gain of this inverting summing circuit is minus RF by R into this voltage B0 minus RF by R by 2 into B1 minus RF by R by 4 into B2 minus RF by R by 8 into B3. The same thing we have written. So we can just write an expression for output voltage like this using the concept of the output voltage equation of inverting summers. If you have any doubts with this, we'll continue later. We'll talk about its limitations in the next class.